This masterclass is called Stand Out and Sell Out, and it's all about mindset. Because as the more I talk to and work with creative entrepreneurs like all of you are, lovely people, the more I understand that probably one of the biggest journeys we are all on as entrepreneurs is being entrepreneurs, and the whole self-development and all the changes we have to do to ourselves in order to succeed. And I think that there is so much, especially in fashion. It's only recently that they're talking about mindset and about mental health, etc. But there is so much, again, that is not being said and explained. And I stumbled upon a lot of things in these past couple of years, since 2020, especially since the pandemic started, which I really think are foundational, not just for if you want to succeed in fashion and in a business, but also for life. I really think they're foundational, and we should all know them. We should be taught in school, etc. And I wanted to share them with you because I think it's really important, especially also as a lot of you are, no doubt like me, I'm just like the rest of you, but we buy so many courses, we look for so much external help, we hire coaches and we get disappointed. We give our power to so many people, expecting them to be the silver bullet and to deliver all the results that we want them. And that is not the reality. That's not how it works. You don't need one person, you need many at different types, at different times of your lifetime, etc., at different times of your business. So that's what I wanted to share, what I'm about to share, because if you understand what's about to come and the concepts, you will see and do better. So quick roll call. This masterclass is for you if you're a creative entrepreneur, as you are. If you're a brand founder, if you're a designer or designer maker already in business, or if you're just planning to launch soon, if you haven't started. If you're feeling perhaps as some are frustrated and overwhelmed, and I see so many people posting on social media that they're overwhelmed, etc. So I think we all suffer from frustration and overwhelm at times, but if that's you, this is for you. If you're struggling to stabilize your sales, I think as we start running businesses, we all have periods when there are sales, there are periods when there are no sales. And we all aim at stabilizing them so that we can, forecast and we can plan, etc. And that is easier said than done, right? So if that's you and you identify with this also is for you. Because we all want to stop worrying and have consistent income. If you already have skills and you're about to graduate from training with some solid hours under your belt and wonder how to create a business, how it's going to pan out, this is for you. And also, maybe you're not any of these things. I really don't think that everyone has to be struggling to be wanting to learn something new. So maybe you're not struggling at all, and that's great. Why is this important? So it's important because you want to create some sort of stability, as I said earlier, which is really important, and also consistency. And most importantly, you want to feel safe and secure in your relationship with money and your business, because your business is so tied up to money, especially in fashion. It's very resource heavy, so you have to spend a lot of money to create products that you can sell. And then it's very money dependent. You need to get this money back in order for your business to go forward and to keep going, right? So that's why this is really important. You also want to feel trust and calm in your nervous system when it comes to running your brand and business, and basically wave goodbye to panic, overwhelm, and anxiety, which is such a part and parcel of the journey of entrepreneurship, and especially I think somehow maybe even more in fashion, because simply there's so many moving parts in the world of fashion that I feel like this is even more prevalent. And it's also important right now to know this information so that you can create a life and business on your own terms. If you desire freedom, fun, fulfillment, if you want to have a business and live a life, it should be possible, right? So you should be able to have both. This is also about having the freedom of choice. So everyone has a choice, and we can exercise that choice at any point of our lifetimes. And I think that this is what actually differentiates us from animals, because we have that freedom of choice, consciously making a choice at any one time. So if you know that you are having your business and you feel that the only way to be creative and express yourself creatively is through your business, and you want to free yourself from office politics like I did, and feel safe because you're your own boss, again, this is for you. Okay, but the reality is that running your brand and business is not as easy as it may seem. And certainly Instagram and social media makes it look sometimes like it's really easy. It is not like walking in the park. It is not as predictably easy as you may have thought it would be. Very often there's the misconception that, oh, fashion is, being creative. It's kind of, if you have the skills, if you have the vision and, the ideas, it should be easy for everything else to fall into place. Not so. If you find yourself wondering if it is possible to turn this brand that you've started or your ideas into real business and run it in a way that feels good and authentic to you, and that you can sustain, the business can sustain you in your livelihood, that is what we will address here. But you want to do this without spreading yourself thin, without following tactics and strategies that make you feel sick, because there's like so many of them, and I can vouch for that. And also you want to, you might be wondering, is it possible to create a business in this environment, in this economy? Just the other day, I met with someone who said to me, Desi, really, do you think that I can restart my business and relaunch it right now in this economy? And as she asked me the question, she also answered for herself, because there is no good time and there is no bad time. It is what it is, the reality. And there's a lot of examples of businesses who started in recessions. And if you can make it in a recession, you can make it in good times, right? So if you've been wondering also, can you actually do this without burning out? Can you go in without getting into stress and overwhelm, without working 60, 80 hours a week? Who's done this? One. Can you how do you manage your energy and not run out of energy? And sometimes a lot of creatives are really sensitive. Can they have creative businesses? We hear about a lot of, well, I certainly do, about a lot of creatives that when you hear about stories from the office, they're actually quite mean and quite strong individuals. They're not at all the sensitive souls that they portray themselves to be. And if you're genuinely a nice person and sensitive soul, can you succeed in business? Also, what happens if nobody buys your products, which often is the case, especially when you start? Can you do this without managing a large team or having a team at all? Can you keep it simple and still succeed? Can you succeed if you don't have a backer? That's something that a lot of creatives also wonder, or they assume that if someone succeeded, it's because they had money behind them. Not always the case. So can you yourself do that? What will it take for you to succeed without a backer? If you don't have a useful network, if you don't know who's who and all of that can kind of pull you and connect you and plug you into the right places and sources. If you don't have a fashion background and experience, can success also, be in the books for you? So this is what we're going to focus on. And I just wanted to tell you that, from my experience, my personal experience, and from, the majority of startups that I have been working for the past few years, what happens is that very often the business that they start is an accident. It's not very strategically planned. Sometimes there are people who plan strategically their businesses. A few years ago, I met at a function this guy who is the founder of a very successful and well-known sock brand. And when I asked him, why socks? How did you decide on socks? He told me that his partner and himself were in the finance world. They worked for venture capital or for, a banking institution or something, and they wanted to start a business of their own. They wanted to be something in fashion. And they spent a lot of hours in British Library devouring business books and statistics and forecasts for how industries are going to develop and growth projections, etc. And they stumbled upon socks, that it was a growing category. And that's how they decided to start a business in socks. And for me, it was just inconceivable that someone will, at that time, start a business like that, so scientifically, with such research, and not really, that business is not born out of the idea and the passion for the product, etc. But who's to say what's right and what's wrong? However, the majority of the people that I deal with and that I support and help and interact with, the majority of the people that I see struggle and not achieve their full potential are people who have this idea and they start a business because in the reality, they don't want to be told what to do, or they're not able, they're not employable, let's say. I think there is a need in the market for my product is another one that I hear people say. But basically what they really want to do, again, is they want to be their own bosses. If I can make the product and have a website, I'm sure I can sell it and I can turn my idea into a business. It's another one. Often we see, or we know of people who are less creative than you might be. And you think to yourself, gosh, if they're so less creative and their product, sucks, etc. So if they can make it, I can make it. My idea is better, I'm more creative, etc. If I can do X, if I can get a website and all my friends buy and tell all their friends, etc., I can start a business. So these are all the pitfalls we fall into. Very often, a lot of people, including me, we say to ourselves, I will do this on the side until I'm making enough money to leave my job. And then I will focus on this full time and then blah, 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 right? I will hire some help when I have more money. Until then, I will do it alone. I will get paid interns. I will ask for help from friends and family. I would struggle until some future date. I will pay myself when. Again, it's something that I hear a lot. Whenever I work with people and I ask them for their operational costs, because costs are so important in business, and I look for the bracket, how much they pay themselves, there is no line for salary. And I often hear, oh, I will pay myself when. I can't pay myself because, etc. Right? So very often we make plans that are conditional on having something before we can take a certain action. When I have X, I will do Y, and then I can be whatever, right? I can be the CEO of my business. Then I can become famous. Then I can blah, blah, blah. And this is how all of us are taught to also think. This is how, the media, the books, our parents not knowing any better, the world we live in, our environment, it conditions us to think that way. But imagine if this was also the way that these people on the picture thought, right? Because there's got to be another way. And these people that I've just selected, and there's countless others, but they're an example that there is another way. Because if Ralph Lauren, whose Ralph Lauren is not even his real name, he is Ralph Lifshitz or something like this, right? Born in New York to a Jewish family, definitely not a cowboy. If he in his 40s can start a business and turn it into the empire that it is now, there's something that helped him. He must have had a different way of being and of thinking that has supported him to create what he's created. Victoria Beckham, from nothing, she won a competition. She became a pop star, and then she turned into a big designer. How successful we think she is or isn't, it's an opinion that it doesn't really figure in here. But the fact is that she became a big designer without having the fashion education, without having the skills to sew and draw, perhaps, etc. And there's countless other designers just like that. Tom Ford below, he was a fashion designer, successful fashion designer. And perhaps we can say he had all the credentials. Of course, he's Tom Ford. He was at the head of Gucci, etc. But then he decided to become a director and direct a movie. At least one. I'm sure that there's more than one. But A Single Man is a movie that is well known, and he became, even won some awards as a director of a movie. What made him think he can do that? There must have been something that has allowed him to pursue that dream of his, because he didn't study film, right? So imagine if all of these people had thought in the way that we are conditioned to think that, when I have the degree, when I have the experience, when I have the money, when I have X, Y, Z, then I will do blah, blah. And then I can be a director, a fashion designer, whatever it is, right? But they didn't. They, in fact, instead became what they wanted to do, then they took the actions in order to have the success or the job or the project that they ought to achieve, whatever they wanted to achieve. So instead of having to do something in order to do and then be, they've reversed the equation. They assumed the being, they became the vision, the identity that they wanted to be. They took the action towards the outcome that they wanted to achieve, and then they had the results, whatever those results were, but they had the results that they desired. So the right place to operate from is the be do have model rather than the have do be, which is where all of us for the majority of our time are operating from. So in this masterclass today, I'm going to hopefully not too long, but I'm going to focus and go over three key things. Number one is the truth why so many creative brand founders don't get results and build the brands that they envision. We've already started talking about this. How do you actually then create the result that you want? The second thing I'm going to share with you is the compounding effect and the rule of 80-20, which is my favorite. Everything in my life is 80-20. And the third one topic that we'll focus on is the life-changing difference between desire and decision. So I'm going to go into it, but I just want to friendly suggest to you that you don't pull notes and start taking notes. There's a lot that I'm going to share, and I would rather that you pay attention and you focus and understand the topic, and then there will be a replay and you can replay it and take notes. So number one, the truth, why so many creative brand founders don't get results. There's something, and I'm really excited to share this with you because really it's life-changing if you you'll see what I mean in a second, but there's something called logical levels of being model, invented by some anthropologist, I forget his name. If you go and Google later on after this masterclass, logical levels of being model, you can read a lot more about it, and it's really interesting. But basically, this is 6 different levels of being that are very conditional and interrelated, and there's a knock-on effect between them that determines whether you succeed on something or not. And you can start from the top down, you can start from the bottom up, but you can do it both ways. But very quickly, I would start from the bottom up and explain it to you. But basically, this model is based on the idea that you are a product of your environment. And your environment is everything that is around you externally. So this is the home and house you live in, the neighborhood and country, the people, the family, the relationships you have with people. So everything that is external, outside of, as they say, your skin, is your environment. And they can create the conditions for you to succeed or fail. They're not the only determinant, but they play a really big role in the outcome that you're going to get. Your environment determines the behavior that you are going to have because your behavior is supported by your environment. Now, then the next layer is your skills. If you want to achieve something, you need to have the skills, but skills you can often learn, right? So this is a learned behavior, the skills, but you need to have the behavior that's going to result in facilitate for you to learn the skills. And then another layer is your values and beliefs, because if you believe that you can do something or if you believe that you can't do something, that would determine your behavior, whether you're going to acquire or exercise the skills you have. And that is predetermined to a large extent by your environment. And after your beliefs and values comes identity. And identity is very important because identity basically is the being. Just now when we talked about the be do have, the be, this is your identity. And that very often is a conscious decision that you can assume. And some people don't even realize that they have a certain identity, which is determining how they behave, for good or for bad. But the purpose of this masterclass is I want to show you that actually you can assume an identity that will determine success and give you the results that you want. Purpose I'm not going to focus because, purpose is purpose. Purpose is, your mission and your business, etc. But you can decide that you want to do whatever you want to do. But if you don't create then the identity and start assuming that identity, nothing will happen. So when you assume this identity, when you decide what, that you would have a certain identity, for example, of a successful entrepreneur, you then need to have the behavior to support that identity. The behavior is the actions that you're going to take in order to get the results. But the behavior is predetermined to a large extent by the environment you live in and the beliefs you hold. So if you don't have the beliefs and the environment correctly set up and organized, you will struggle to support a behavior because your brain will always override whatever else you're trying consciously to do. Your subconscious brain will override your conscious efforts. And your subconscious brain is very much the values and beliefs, what has been installed to you like a software. If you're like a computer, this is the software that at birth starts getting installed by your environment, by your parents, the people you hang out with, the books you read, etc., etc. And that determines your behavior. So if you don't change your beliefs, you're not going to change your behavior, which means that you're not going to be able to fulfill the identity that you want to assume in order to get certain results. However, if you understand this model, this logical model, and if you start reverse engineering it and focusing on what do I need to be, who do I need to be in order to have whatever you want to have, the gap in between is the doing, it's the actions. And the actions you can then create through changing your beliefs consciously, by improving your skills if you don't have certain skills, or hiring for those certain skills, and by creating a behavior that is going to, or actions that is going to support the outcome that you want to get. Tell me if this makes sense, tap in the chat so that I know if I should continue. Does that make sense? Okay, so I will keep going. So I want to give you a quick example how this works. So I'll do me, and I'm sure that you can do the same exercise with yourself. But pre-1999, between when I was born and 1989, I grew up in a communist country. Most of you probably know. I grew up in Bulgaria, in Eastern Europe, and my beliefs that were installed by my environment, and my environment was supportive, family, rule-based, very binary society, because it was a communist regime. So, there was the party and nothing else. And my beliefs that were installed in me, consciously and subconsciously, is that if you don't follow the rules of the party, if you don't go through the ranks, we had different ranks from first grade, to third grade, you were one rank, then you changed to a pioneer, then you changed to something else. If you didn't follow all the ranks, etc., you are not going to be accepted in society. You're not going to fit in. You're not going to be valued and respected. From a young age, I was acquiring skills through the crafts that my grandparents were teaching me, through my hobbies, etc., but also through my studies. My behavior was predetermined by my environment, which said, if you don't study and get a degree, go to university, you are a waste of space, pretty much. You're not going to achieve anything. And so my behavior was to study respectable subjects, because there were respectable subjects that will get you a good job. And art, fashion, or anything like this in my environment was not considered a good job to have. So I studied respectable subjects. I got high grades. I tried to fit in and do all the things that were expected by my environment. Okay, so that was my model of reality pre-1989. Then 89, my family moved to London. My father was sent to work in London, and my environment changed. So I still had a very supportive family environment, but all of a sudden I was exposed to a completely different culture, a Western culture, non-communist, on the contrary, the opposite, capitalist culture, Through the years, I became very international. I've traveled to countless countries and cultures and learned languages, and etc. So I count myself, my identity has changed, and I'm now Eastern European British citizen, but my identity is actually of someone who is international. I'm a citizen of the world, right? So this is my identity. My beliefs have changed. My beliefs now, because I have seen proof, because of my environment, have changed. And I believe that you can do anything you want to do. Anything is possible, and you can be anyone you want to be. My skills are still there. If anything, I have more than ever. I'm like properly overqualified in many respects. However, my behavior hasn't changed because I was an employee for many years. I worked for a company, and therefore my environment was capped. It was limited. So my environment determined my behavior. My behavior was as an employee. I had certain rules and certain expectations to live by. I had people to report to. There was a glass ceiling that, there's only so much you can do. I was of the belief that you can't start another business because you have to pay mortgage. You have to, if you have kids, you have to support them. You have responsibilities as girlfriend, sister, daughter, mother, etc. Right? There's a lot of hats that we wear. So this was my environment, and therefore my behavior, the actions I was taking were to support that environment. And my beliefs were not supported by the actions I was taking. I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I exited being an employee in a company, and I went into an entrepreneurial environment. But I kind of did, it's a whole other story that I can share another time, but I was building a business with backers behind me, with a lot of money. I was drawing a salary, and even though it was a supportive environment, it was still kept. I had not changed my behavior. I still behaved like an employee because I had a salary, and because, that salary made me comfortable, and I didn't have to stretch. I worked really hard. I just, in my identity, didn't really change. I didn't change my identity. I didn't stretch myself, right? So I had success. It doesn't mean I didn't have success. I had success. I did a lot of things, but I wasn't getting to the level where I wanted to get to. I wasn't achieving the things that in my vision at a higher level I wanted to achieve. And that is because I didn't have everything aligned, okay? So come the pandemic, and even before the pandemic, I closed down the business I was running because after working for 6 years super hard, I realized that it was not fulfilling me. I was killing myself. And the longer it was going, the more I was feeling unhappy. It's not giving me joy. And more than anything else, something that I feel so passionate about, which is the fashion industry and what I do, etc., I was beginning to hate because I wasn't seeing the change that I wanted to create, which was the reason that I started this business. So my values were not changed. My skills were there. My behavior was lacking because my environment wasn't fully correct, right? And also I hadn't assumed fully the identity of successful entrepreneur. And once the pandemic started and we all changed, and I changed my business and I started learning more and changing my environment and starting to hang out with with more entrepreneurs. I got mentors, coaches, joined masterminds, I've done countless of things in the past few years, and my identity changed. And especially this year, since the beginning of this year, when up-leveled a whole new level, and I found out a whole bunch of new things that helped me assume this new identity. Everything is now falling into place. Everything makes sense. And the stretches that I have to do that felt uncomfortable before are getting more comfortable. I won't lie to you. Not everything is still comfortable, but it's getting better. And I don't think that we ever reach a level where we feel comfortable. We just have to accept that there's always, you're always going to be uncomfortable somewhere with something. So this is where I'm now. Post 2020, I have changed my identity and I am reverse engineering everything that I need to do. I have the environment right and I have the identity, and my values are there. I'm now, and my skills are there. I'm now working on my behavior in order to marry and connect everything, connect the dots, as they say. And that is what we all need to do. And that is what is not spoken about, it's not explained, and certainly in the creative world is not known. When the reason I'm going back to this pyramid is I want to tell you is that when you hire mentors and join courses, and I get really triggered and annoyed by people that I see with a few years pushing paper in a fashion company experience, telling you that just mindset or just marketing or just sales tactics or just the e-commerce site is going to be the answer to everything. It's super annoying, particularly now, knowing what I know, having done this work, because nothing in isolation works. Everything is part of a context and it's part of a bigger picture. And this is the picture. We have to connect the dots and work on ourselves and up level and assume a new identity, and then install new beliefs that are going to support our skills, that are going to facilitate and support our behavior. And our behavior is going to reinforce those beliefs we have. And we are going to find, because you have a choice to change your environment. We are going to find the right environment to support our behavior and beliefs in order to give you the identity. Only then can we get the results that we want to get. Only then are we going to get results. And that is why so many fashion brands or creative designer makers, you don't have to be in fashion, it can be anything in any area of life, etc., have challenges and experience challenges, and they can't get the results that they want to. So because I'm someone who questions things a lot, and I also am someone who really wants to understand things, I want to keep this practical. So I put this slide here because I wanted to tell you how you can apply this model. I know that you can go and Google it and learn more about it, but what is really an easy way to do this, and something I encourage the people I work with, particularly now, is to find someone who you admire, who is someone that you admire. It can be from any area of life, and it can be more than one person. Sometimes we don't see all the traits that we want to install into ourselves in one person. But if you find someone that you really admire, that makes it easier, because then you can create a script for yourself. You can create, something like, if I am to behave like this person, this is how I'm going to wake up. This is what I'm going to do when I wake up. This is how I'm going to deal with challenging situations. This is blah, 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 right? So you can also think of yourself. If my higher version, when I'm successful, if I was to be like super successful, what would I be doing? Would I be like faffing around and, having an argument about who washed or didn't wash the dishes and, be doing my own cleaning and things like this? For example, you can create a script for yourself, what your life would look like. And you can always use that as a guideline to the identity you want to assume and be, and then reverse engineer down, what you need to do, the actions you need to take. I know also of people who assume an identity by, for example, putting glasses. When they put on glasses on, they feel like they're a different person, and they assume physically, literally, they need that kind of physical touch element to help them assume this new identity. And it's a little bit like Superman, right? With the cape, etc. So you can create something like this, as long as it allows you, whatever you do, it doesn't matter, there's different ways, as long as you are able to access this different mental space that allows you to have non-emotional, clear decisions, and to take actions to these decisions and not be hindered by who would say what, what are they going to think of me, etc., etc. Because if you think of your idol, let's say, I don't know, not that this is my idol, but let's say Richard Branson. Is Richard Branson going to be bothered how he's looking on his Instagram picture, etc.? Someone that I, for example, really admire is Sarah Blakely, what was her name? The Spanx lady. Well, I mean, I follow her on Instagram. I see how she lives her life, and she's so natural and down to earth and unfazed, and so genuine and giving and in service of her employees, etc. That often, I say to her, my God, does she worry that she's like not looking her best, or she's, put on a few pounds, she's getting a few wrinkles, etc. And I ask myself these questions, and it helps me to get perspective and move on from whatever little thing is, bothering me and standing in my way. So you can do the same. But the other thing that I really wanted to tell you here, another thing that I have learned, and it served me so much this past few years, especially through, the whole pandemic and changing my business, etc., is the idea of what meaning are you giving to something. So whenever you have a challenge, an obstacle, you're disappointed by something, someone says something to you, it is us that we tell ourselves stories and we give something a meaning. But maybe that is not what their intention was. Maybe that's not at all what happened, right? We in our heads are giving meaning to something, and as a result, we are feeling disheartened, we're feeling upset, we therefore, start taking certain actions, making certain choices in response to the meaning that we're giving anything. And that is not often the case. So being very mindful and careful what kind of meaning we give to things is really important, especially because this is number 2 game changer that I learned this past few years, is that there's levels of consciousness. So again, levels of consciousness, you can Google it and read more about it. I'm not going to, tell you everything, especially since I'm not, an expert on the levels of consciousness. I'm learning myself, but our interpretations and choices that we make on daily basis determine the energy and vibrations that we project outwardly. And if we are in a state of shame, guilt, if we are grieving, if we are scared, like so often as an entrepreneur, especially at the beginning of our journey, we are scared of so many things. That fear, anger, etc., these are low vibrations. They bring us down. They don't give us, nice, joyful feeling. We just feel like our energy slumps. We start procrastinating. We start self-sabotaging. We start seeing, because whatever you're thinking, you start seeing, because your brain wants to find evidence for whatever you're thinking to support your thoughts. So we start seeing people that are not doing well because, they did one Instagram lives, for example, said the wrong thing and got canceled, right? That whole cancel culture. Or I don't know. I mean, there's plenty of examples. But so if you choose to stay in these feelings and marinate in them, in fear, grief, apathy, guilt, shame, blah, 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 they give these low vibrations. And then our mind looks for other low vibrations to match our vibrations and for evidence to support how you feel. But that is not where you are of service. That is not where creativity operates. Creativity works in the higher vibrations, in when you feel proud of what you're doing, right? You feel happy. And when you are willing to do something to get out of your comfort zone, and then you get result and you feel, again, pride that you did this, when you feel accepted and comfortable, when you feel loved, when you're in joyful, state, happy about something, when you are meditating and have peace of mind, etc. These are all the high vibrations. And the highest vibration, the enlightenment, is basically Buddha. I don't think we should aim for it. But we can certainly achieve the ones below, right? So anything from pride up to peace is something that is absolutely manageable and achievable. And if we choose not to give certain meaning to things that happen to us, challenges, and I'll give you some examples, we can stay in the higher vibrations, and then our brains will be constantly finding examples to support these beliefs. And that is when we assume the right identity, we will be in high vibrations, and we will be finding and seeing examples all around us to support that new identity, to support those beliefs, to give us to see the results of the behavior and actions that we take, etc. And that also can be changed by the environment. So, for example, when you choose to not work at home because it's really noisy and it's bringing you down for whatever reason, or you're just fed up of being at home, and you go to a cafe. Or that's why there's so many entrepreneurs who are nomads, digital nomads, and they travel around the world, because by changing their environment, by traveling, by going to another country, another culture, another cafe, etc., you're changing the vibe around you. You're changing the people who are around you. By joining a mastermind, by joining some coaching program, etc., with the right people who are stretching you, who are challenging you, etc., you are you're changing your environment, and you are then changing your behavior because you see the identity of these people, you see the actions they take, the results that they get, you want to emulate them, and you up level yourself. So that is why this connects to the other, the levels of consciousness connects to the levels of logic. And that's why it's so powerful to know all of this, because it's all in your hands. It's your choice. It's a choice you can make, right? And here in this map of consciousness, you can see, the emotions and the actions you can take that correlate to all of these different vibrations. And the lower you are in the scale, that is where you have destructive energy. This is like when people talk about like, oh my God, you have, or so someone has negative energy. I lately say that a lot, but this is this moment, people who are like highly anxious, worry about everything, are not being reasonable, live in fear, etc. And I consciously now make the decisions to move away and change my environment and to support my new beliefs and identity that I have assumed because I want to achieve certain results, right? And this is the kind of work, by the way, that I kind of implement and talk when I talk with people, because I want, people that I work with, creative brand founders, the clients I work with, because I just want everyone to know and operate from this space and be aware of their thoughts, and particularly to stop giving meaning to things. The second thing that we were going to talk about is the compounding effect and the rule of 2020. And the compounding effect is basically the strategy of reaping huge rewards from small, seemingly insignificant actions, right? So small choices that you make consistently over a period of time gives you significant results. And this is a concept that is very much part and parcel of the finance industry. Very often, if you have interests in stocks and shares and in the financial stock markets, etc., you would hear about stocks that have compounding effect, they grow over time, etc. So in the world of creativity and fashion, it's not a concept often talked about, but we should. I want to show you this guy simply because he's probably the best example to understand what I'm talking about. This is, for those of you who don't know Warren Buffett, he is probably perhaps in the history of the world, the most successful investor. And he started investing money and saving money, etc., as a teenager when he was 14. And I want you to know that, up until his kind of 50s, he was amassing a lot of money. He was making a lot of money, but it's no way near the amount of money that he has now. And he's currently, I think, 92, 93, and this stops at 83. So imagine how much more he has amassed. Like, he's gazillionaire by all intents and purposes. And 99% of his wealth was created after he turned 50. Why is that? He is very famous, for those of you who don't know, about talking of value stocks, investing in value companies that over a long period of time will give value. One of his investments, long-term investment that he's been invested in for 40, 50 years, for example, is Coca-Cola. He believed that Coca-Cola as a brand was here to stay. And no matter what happens with the economy, etc., they were a brand to stay. They were a value brand, in his opinion. And over time, the value will be recognized by the stock market. Another stock that he is heavily invested in, for example, is Apple. So regardless of what competitors come out, what problems there are on the market, etc., he believes that Apple as a company has a lot of value, and over time, that value will appreciate and it will compound, which means it would like double, triple, etc. And when you back something of value that you believe in, and you believe that you invested for the long term, the constant little efforts, what we just said, the small choices and decisions you make over time, the consistency of these choices and decisions you make over time and the actions you take over a longer period of time create these results. And there comes a point, like in his late 50s, etc., when all of a sudden he started like double, triple, or whatever more his results from one decade to the next, etc. So all of a sudden you have this, what people talk about, quantum leap. And it took me a while to get the idea of what quantum leap is. But I think that that's what they're talking about, right? When all of a sudden you are bending time, when you're jumping, you're achieving so much more than what's possible. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is because in the world of fashion and in creative world, we do exactly the opposite. We launch a brand, we launch a website, and I can't tell you how many times, people I work with, people I know of, launch a website and then get in touch, can you work with me? Can you help me? Wow, crying. They launch the website and there's no sales. It doesn't happen overnight. Very often we look at our brands as, this thing that we've put so much of our money and effort that we want like straight away results. Why are there no sales? I've committed to so much stock. I have invested so much of my time and money. I borrowed money. Why is it not delivering? I recently wrote a big kind of post on social media and talked about the concept that your business is not your baby, but you need to treat it as your baby. And what I mean by that is that as a business, if it's not your baby, you can kill it. There's this famous line in one of the black and white movies, about killing your darling. And your business is exactly that. If it no longer serves you, if it doesn't give you joy, if it's not working, whatever, kill it. It's not your baby. It's not human. Kill it. But if you decide to do this business, if you're passionate about it, if you believe in it, etc., then you really need to nurture it and love it and look at it as a child and manage your expectations, because when you are preparing to launch, that's your pregnancy phase, right? When you launch your business with the website, you go out to the world and start, talking to people, asking for sales, etc. That is when you've given birth to your business. And you don't give birth to a baby and say, why are you not walking? And, why are you not paying for your own, feeding yourself, clothing yourself? Why are you not paying rent, etc.? You don't. You're very patient for at least like a year, 18 months until it can stand on its legs. It's about the third year in a child's life that they start feeding themselves and there's some kind of independence kicking in, right? Why are we not doing this with our businesses? We're putting so much pressure. And that is why I wanted to show you this, because if you look at your business and commit to it long term, you're going to start seeing the compound effect of everything that you have invested into that business in a few years' time. In America, a business that is around the 10-year mark is considered emerging. If you look at wholesale, for example, when I talk to buyers and I offer share with designers, that buyers usually follow a brand for about 3 seasons minimum before they decide to try and consider buying them. 3 seasons is about a year and a half, right? Why do they do that? Because they want to see that you can stand on your feet, that you can put out the next collection, that you're not going to go crazy on them. One minute you're doing, something colorful, next minute you're like super minimalistic and grunge style, right? They have a business to take care of that, has clients with certain expectations, etc. So they want to be certain that the person they invest their time and money in as a brand or a founder, etc., is going to justify that belief. So they're going to watch you. They're not going to jump. So you need to have the beliefs, the right vibes and energy, and that's your responsibility to maintain all of this, and have a long-term plan and not a short-term plan, supported by your vision, by strategies, by you managing your own expectations, in order to get to the point where people will start, come out of the sidelines and say, hey, I've been watching you, for a few seasons. Can we talk? Can I buy you, etc. The same happens to customers. There's lots of lurkers, right? In Facebook groups that you're posting, online, following you, not doing anything, checking out your website, but not buying, because there's different types of psychology. And I will be in the future making, doing masterclasses specifically to debunk and make you understand the psychology of the buyers. But just because you decided that you've got a brand out there as a website and a product, and you've spent a lot of money on a production and blah, 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 it doesn't mean that it's going to pan out straight away the way you want it. So you need to understand the damage you can do with your pressure, the pressure you put, and the short-term strategies that you have versus, the compound effect you can reap with the long-term strategy that you can put to support your vision, etc. And to release the pressure. So there's a very often pressure that we put, especially financially. We check our jobs, right? Leave your 9 to 5, they said. There's so many coaches and people that advise you to, just jump and leave the 9 to 5, or for whatever reason you maybe decide to leave your 9 to 5 because it's not working out, it's making you unhappy. Valid, leave it, right? But we straight away put pressure on the business to deliver. I need so much sales every month, to pay my bills, mortgage, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't work like this. It doesn't happen overnight. I mean, there's obviously unicorns for whom it might happen, but for the majority of us, for the people with feet on the reality, it just doesn't work like this. So you need to be, if you have the identity of someone who is a successful entrepreneur, what do successful entrepreneurs do? They're dynamic, they pivot, they experiment, they find ways, they hustle, right? So you need to do all of these things to support your business and to make sure that it survives. You cannot just give up and cry and, buy one course here, buy another one course here. Someone tells you that, if you don't have your SEO right, you won't succeed. So you do this. And someone tells you about marketing and TikTok and Pinterest, and oh my God, you can go mad, right? If you know what you're doing and that you have a long-term strategy and you know that you have to take certain actions to release certain pressure valves on your business to allow it the space to grow like a normal child, right? Without the pressure, walk, eat. Then you will get to the point where you'll be reaping and seeing that success. Then comes, the 80-20 rules, my favorite. I told you that everything, if you know me, it's 80-20. But I often deal with creatives who are very fixed on perfection. And I think that, perfectionism very often is part of being a creative. But that is behavior that is not going to support the identity of an entrepreneur, because an entrepreneur is dynamic, they pivot, they experiment, they're not seeking perfection, right? So if you're going to seek perfection, you're going to struggle. And also, what is perfection? There's no such thing. What's perfect to you is imperfect for me. And in fact, the other day I heard someone say that your imperfection is the perfection in nature, in everything. There is no perfection even in nature. So I operate, and I often advise the brand founders I work with, we operate from the premise that 80% is perfect. And if you look at that rule of the 80-20, again, you can Google it, learn more about it. But everything in business, in life, etc., is 80-20. 80% of an effort that you give will only have 20% meaningful results. 20% of all your clients, if you're already selling products, if you analyze your figures, you would see that 20% of your clients will be giving you 80% of the income. 20% of your entire social media following are going to be the people who are engaged with you and responding, etc. 80% are lurkers, right? Everything in life is 80-20. And it's really important to understand this and zoom in and zoom out and analyze data with this, because once you get it, it's really powerful. With one brand founder client of mine, we zoomed in and identify who are the 20% that give 80% of revenue to his brand. And then from those 20%, we did the same. Again, who are these 20% out of the other 20% who are giving 80% of that 20% pie revenue, right? And it was such a powerful data analysis that we did, because we identified some new avenues, some top customers that he can go and reward them in a different way and create certain partnerships and, and speak to them and find new avenue to grow his business, etc. So these are very powerful way of operating, but you have to kind of feel confident and free to be able to do this. You can't put the pressure on your business. You need to have the mindset to sort of do this kind of work. And that's why I'm saying that very often we are so myopically focused on something. Oh my God, this is not selling. This collection is bombing. My website is not converting because today or this month I didn't get money. This month is terrible. I'm overwhelmed. Should I close my business? It's just not working. We are sometimes so close to the picture that we don't see everything else that is happening. So we just need to stand back, zoom out, look at the big picture, then go back. What's not working? What is my 80-20? Or what does data support this belief that I'm not making any sales? Someone I was talking to recently was saying that they don't sell very often. And when we looked at their data, they were selling very often. It's just that they were selling little things and not the big items that they wanted in order to make the money that they needed for the business. But they were selling. So if you don't zoom out to look at the data and then zoom in and define by what metrics are you going to, judge and make certain statements, then it's all going to be doom and gloom, right? And then I've put here as a reminder, hello manufacturing drama, because I wanted to tell you in fashion, very often people go wrong with their ego. And ego is on the identity level, right? Their ego gets in the way. They think that they're better, that they're manufacturers. Then marketeers think that they're better than the designers. There's this kind of cascading order of people and their ego that gets in the way. And very often that is what prevents you from taking action and seeing the bigger picture and moving forward. And I'll just give you one example. I recently, rather disappointingly, had an interaction with someone who seemed really lovely and friendly and intelligent, etc., and wanted me to help him manufacture something. And we had a problem when the sample was made, and it was beautifully made, and the price was on point of what this person was looking for, etc. When they saw the product, they said, oh my God, this is the wrong product. Why did the factory make the wrong product? Well, how is it the wrong product? We looked at the patterns. Now, the factory would not make something by a pattern that they just pulled out from a cupboard if they are using the pattern that was sent to them digitally. There's emails to prove it, etc. They made this sample. This person was fretting and wanting to jump on calls and discuss the fact that we had just wasted his time, that he's wasted 27 pounds to grade something and send something and bought 3 meters of fabric, etc. And I kept saying, can we look at the bigger picture? You have a factory that is going to make small quantity for you. You have a product that's really nicely made. Something's happened along the way. We can fix it. We can make a new sample free of charge. No, he wanted to know who's to blame. Cut it off, stopped. I did not invoice for what the work done, etc. Just stopped. Because you cannot operate from that place. And this is, everything we spoke about. He was zooming in on something and looking for something negative instead of seeing the bigger picture and all the positive and moving forward. And we all learned from that lesson, because sooner or later we're going to find out what went wrong. But more important was to move. And I don't know, do you think that this is the kind of premise for a brand to succeed? Me thinks not, but time will tell. But what I'm trying to say is that everything is a choice, and knowing what you know up until now, you can make the choices. Would you and your idol, the identity that you want to assume and the kind of successful entrepreneur, designer, business founder you want to be, bother with tiny little things and bicker about 27 pounds? Or will they see the positives, how hard it is to find a factory that can do small quantity, that can, give you a good price and has a good quality of work? So just be mindful of that, okay? These are the reasons why so many creative brands don't succeed. Okay, next, if you're wondering, can you succeed if you're introvert? I've become one. I think I'm succeeding. And there's plenty of evidence of tons of designers who are successful by all the measures that society wants to measure them, and they are introverts. If you don't want to share your private life, again, me. If you don't want to have a big team and office, again, me, like probably lots of other people. If you're not good with numbers, if you're dyslexic, if you don't or can't network, again, all of these things, except the dyslexia, is also tick for me. Can you run a business, any kind of business, including a creative business? And the answer is yes, because of the model of what we just said, because there's, you can find, the people with the skills, as long you can find the people with the skills. If you don't want to do something, you can, as long as you have the beliefs, the environment, and the behavior, you can do anything. But what is really important is this point here, number 3, and that is your state of mind. Are you desiring something, or are you deciding that you're going to get the results and you're going to do what you want to do and be the person you want to be? Or are you just simply desiring them? Because very often what I see is a lot of people who are entrepreneur. They want to have a fashion business. They have an idea that they think the world needs, and they don't want to be employed and be told what to do. They want to have their own fashion brand. They want to be famous, blah, blah, blah. They just want. But they're not taking the steps to work on themselves, to do the work that supports a decision that is made. I'm going to succeed no matter what. And there's a psychology of success. And the psychology of success says that you need to make a decision that you're going to do it. You need to make the decision that what you want to do is inevitable. Okay, it's going to happen. My success is inevitable. My business success is inevitable. Like, people who are successful, they don't doubt. They just throw themselves into the deep end and they figure it out. Actually, there's Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, who in his late 30s or 40s started LinkedIn. Did he know how to do any of these things? No, he had a vision and he had the identity, reverse engineered everything. He created LinkedIn. But he is famous in saying that being an entrepreneur is like flying a plane that's falling apart and you're reassembling it while it's kind of trying to tank. And that's a very apt description of what you do as an entrepreneur with your business when you've decided that no matter what happens, you're going to figure it out. You're going to fix it. You're going to find the people to help you. You're just going to figure it out. I want to recommend you, if this is an interesting topic and the psychology of success is something that you want to know more about, is something pleasurable way of learning, is to watch the movie King Richard, which is a documentary. I think it's on Prime, on Amazon. You can find it and watch it. But it's about the Venus and Serena Williams sisters. And what is really interesting is that their father, from an early age, decided that they were going to be number one in tennis. And that was it. He just decided it. He assumed that identity of a coach. And there was no doubt that they were going to get there. And from then on, he reverse engineered everything that he had to do. He took the right actions. He got them the right into the right tournaments, the right schedule with school, with food, with training, etc. He treated them like they were stars. He demanded and fought on their behalf like they were winners. He had all the expectations that everyone had to see them as winners because he had decided that they were successful. That was what's going to happen. And that kind of unshakable belief is very rare in creative circles. Okay, very often we hear examples of people who became famous after they died with artists, right? Designers who suffered, and then a big company finally bought their brand, gave them some money, and it became big, but after they exited or something like this. And we no longer have to fall for this paradigm. We no longer have to believe in this, single binary world. We can have it all. Maybe not always at the same time, but we can have it all if we have the right identity and do everything, the logical model of being that we just talked about. And when you decide, I love this graphic. When you decide on something, you don't give up. You just find the ways, right? And very often what I see is people who get defeated because I don't have money, the factory screwed me up, my social media is not working, Instagram hacked my, Facebook, my account was hacked, Instagram shut my account, I can't do this, I can't do that, no one's buying, my website's not working, tons of excuses, right? And that's where you stop. If you have decided that no matter what, you're going to figure it out because you're for the long term here, and you're not going to stop. And eventually you're going to find the goal. You are going to get the results and what you want to do. So that is really important. You have to decide. You can't just sit and want. And that's where most of creatives are. I did a few years ago, this is interesting, a few years ago, I did, for a masterclass, I did a study where I went back to when I started in fashion, pre the year 2000, when Fashion Week had serious schedules. This was how designers operated their businesses. They had fashion shows as part of a Fashion Week, etc. And a lot of the designers that I loved at the time, they no longer exist. And I thought, well, how many more don't exist? So I found and downloaded the schedules from 1999 onwards. And literally within 5 to 10 years of these schedules, most of them just dropped out. I went and then searched for them. Nope. Most of them had gone for all of these reasons, because they wanted something more than they had the strength of decision and conviction that no matter what, they were going to do it. And just as a reminder, if you think that, yes, but Desi, can I do this? I can't do that. I just want to remind you something that I often say is that fashion is one of the most highly unregulated industries. There's no rules. There's no fashion police. There's no fashion law. You decide what the rules are. That's why it really bugs me when people talk about ethical business, about ethical manufacturing, about sustainability, etc. Is because if there's no rules, what are you measuring it against? Your own convictions, beliefs, etc. And that varies from person to person. So if there's no rules, who would you be and what would you do to succeed? What could you do to succeed? I mean, look at Instagram. So the reason I put that here is because look at what their logo was in 2010 when they launched and where they are now. Do you think that they were bothered about pivoting and changing their logo? Do you think that they were worried, am I breaking a law? Can I do this? Can I rebrand? What would the world think, etc.? And this is an app that half the world is using, right? Billions, not like our small little brands. Then Instagram, I mean, what are they? They wanted to be Pinterest, they wanted to be Snapchat, they wanted to be TikTok. Now they want to be back to Instagram and be more pictures, etc. They wanted to be YouTube at one point. They pivoted so many times and nobody stopped them. Nobody said, hey, you can't do that. They experimented. And through the experiments, yes, they lost some people, but they also gained a lot. Their strength hasn't diminished because the world is wide. When you have a business, it's not like in your little country, it's global. If you have a website, your business is global. So you can't be bothered by oh my God, so many people unsubscribed. So what? Go somewhere else. People ask me, oh, but now the recession, now the war in Ukraine, etc. So what? There's other markets. Not every market is as affected as Europe by the war in Ukraine. Not every market is having the recession to the extent that, for example, the UK is having at the moment, compounded by the Brexit palaver. There's other markets. There's plenty of people. How many customers do you need? How many billions is the world? And how many customers exactly do you need in order for you to make the money that you need to make to live off your business and be happy? If you calculate it, because I've calculated it for clients of mine, etc., and actually it's 0.000 something percentage, right? So do the math and understand that whatever, you can do anything. You can pivot, you can rebrand. You don't need anyone's permission. You're not breaking a fashion law. You don't have to copy, but you can be inspired by other brands, and you can launch a product by improving it, by doing something that's different. The world does not need another product, and brands who don't innovate in any way are the ones, and also don't have, the mental capacity to run their brands, are the ones who fall by the wayside, who, after a few years close their doors or they don't launch at all. But if you get inspired by someone and create a product that is similar but different, similar but better, and it, serves a particular demographic, certain niche of clients, etc., there's no reason why you can't succeed. And depending on also, what your vision is, what you want to do. So, change your reframe. Look for proof that it can be done as well. There's plenty of examples of people that have done crazy things. A lot of actually the really successful companies in the fashion space that are making a lot of money are brands that you don't even know about. And just as an example, for example, I will tell you something. One of the richest people in fashion, who has a huge, huge mansion somewhere in Switzerland, is the inventor of Velcro. So the reason I'm telling you this is because, do you really want to be in fashion and have something new to say that you want the world to stop and admire you for your creativity, etc., or do you want to make money? You need to decide, right? And by experimenting, sometimes if you allow yourself to pivot and experiment, you might stumble upon something that is not where you started. It's different, but it's going to give you the result that you want, you're still in the industry, you're still doing something that you love, it's giving you the money, it's stretching you and challenging you, the lifestyle that you want, etc. Velcro, right? Lastly, what's really important here for me to tell you is that please always look outside the fashion. Fashion is such a backward, little opaque industry. There's a lot of wonderfulness in there, but there's not a lot that's going to stretch you and teach you how to innovate and succeed. So you really need to look outside of the fashion industry and bring it in. And that's when, together with everything that we've learned now, you will see the results that you're looking for. So because I said to you that this is about standing out, and I hope you see how you can stand out by being different, and I said to you that that would lead you to selling out, I want to tell you about knowing what you know now. What will you do differently? And I want to touch on some things that I have, am doing and I found really helpful, and others that, are just more general. But first of all, if you haven't heard of something called human design, I highly encourage you to look it up. I discovered it just recently, and it was a game changer for me, because human design is something that is based on 5 human types, and every person that's born onto this planet has almost like something that is like a body graph. There's a free website from which you can get your chart. You plug in your data, when you were born, where, what time, and it spits out a data called body graph. But based on that body graph, you have something that I call a manual, like when you buy a car or electrical something, it comes with a manual. We as humans also have a manual. It's just that we didn't know about it and no one's given it to us. But human design, for me, is the manual. And understanding, even if you just watch some YouTube videos and understand just the basic, which type are you, and just the basics about your type, it would be a game changer, I believe, just the way it was to me, because it would really tell you about how you operate. It would empower you. I felt so clear and empowered by discovering what my manual was, that these past few months, I have been changing my business to make it even better and more aligned with the way I work as a human. I want my business, I'm very passionate about my business, and through my human design type now, I know it kind of validated my knowledge that I have a lot of energy, how I do things. Now I understand even better why I do them in a certain way. But it's allowed me and empowered me to actually stop sort of listening to all the people that say, oh, you have to do it this way, you have to do it that way, etc., and to do it my way, because I'm someone who has a lot of ideas all the time. And quite often I have idea for a program or something I want to do, but because I follow this, launch plans that everyone gives you in this industry, in the mentoring, coaching, whatever industry, by the time I followed it, I was bored. I mean, in my head, I had done it. And that's why at the beginning of this year, I was meant to put a couple of programs out. And by the time I announced them and by the time I did everything, I was just done with them. I did not promote them. I stopped promoting them. I did not do them because I was done. It was too long for me. I'm someone who likes faster action. So I have changed my business now to be in better alignment with you. And you can also do, once you understand what's your human design type and how you operate. And if anyone wanted to dig deeper, I know someone amazing to recommend you who will change your world by the information they're going to give you. So message me and I'll put you in touch. But discover who you are, learn more about yourself, what makes you tick, what gives you joy. We weren't put on this planet to suffer, especially if fashion or creativity is your passion, you're not here to suffer, right? Work from your identity backwards. So decide what you want to be, who you want to be, and work backwards. What would someone with that identity, how would they operate? What would they do? How would they think? How would they overcome challenges, etc.? Reverse engineer it. Release the pressure that you place on your business is the next thing. And that is mostly connected with money. We put so much pressure, as I said earlier, on our businesses to sell, give me the money, etc. But often we don't have the foundational blocks right. We don't have our margins right. Most people, almost everyone I speak to hasn't got a clue about their margins, or they tell me that they know, and when we dig deep, it's not the picture, right? So release the pressure from this. Now, if you are watching this masterclass now, You probably know that on Friday, I'll be hosting another masterclass about sales. This second masterclass is going to pick up on this point, how to have sales and release the pressure on your business to generate those sales, right? So I encourage you to get it. And if you're watching later, just look it up and follow up this masterclass with the next one called Sold Out Secrets. Detach from the outcome. Again, if you are not holding so tightly into what you want to be and how much money you want to make by year 3 and break even, etc., without having all the other foundational blocks that I was telling you about now, you're not going to get to these results. So, be open to experiment, be open to pivot and to try new things, because you don't know what you don't know. I mean, the UGG guy, the guy who created the UGG boots, he was a salesman who invented, or I think he saw and started marketing these boots as winter boots, and they just were not selling, right? He could have stopped there, but he started giving them out and experimenting. And then one day he noticed that, some surfers on the beach were wearing them, and he pivoted and he started marketing them to surfers in Australia, etc., etc. The rest is history, right? So detach from the outcome and be open. Less is more. The amount of people that I see with big collections that they cannot finance to sample, let alone go into production, is shocking. Why does everyone want to launch with big collection? Think of UGG boots, think of Crocs. They're a single product business. They started with one unit and they have stretched it like an elastic band in all kinds of directions. And still the bulk of their business comes from this one particular, product. So if they can do it and grow so big, why are you trying to, do the impossible, which is with no finance and all the rest of it, launch with a big collection? Just stop it, right? Less is more. Test and validate. A lot of people don't do the research, they just launch brands. Someone who is a smart entrepreneur, who is a successful entrepreneur, they're not going to, they're going to take risks, but they're not going to jump blindly without, doing some background research into something. So why are you doing it? Test, start small, validate it. Validation means also, knowing what metrics you're going to track. And I'll tell you from my own personal experience, because I did this very painful mistake myself with my last business, is that your biggest metric is money. If you create a product and you test it on the market and no one's buying it and you don't have money in your pocket, then that tells you everything. If you sell it cheaply and you're out of pocket because you paid more money, that's a different set of data. Read it, get the conclusions. If you sell it and you've got change in your pocket after you've sold it and people want more, that tells you also what to do. But test and validate and then improve and repeat. The founder of Allbirds, the new trainer brand that's sustainable and everyone, is going crazy about, and it's growing. So it's one of the biggest growing brands at the moment, I think. This guy, he was a sportsman. He wanted trainers that he can wear with a smart suit and that didn't have lots of logos. And he was into sustainability. He wanted trainers that were made of sustainable material. I can't remember if it was 29 or 37, something like this. It was something between 20 something and 50 reiterations of the one and same design shoe he made before he was like, okay, we're done. We can move on. And he was selling. He was selling while he was also testing, reiterating, improving, selling, gathering more data, testing different markets, testing different materials, price points, etc. 20 plus variations, reiterations, right? And he did not move on. He did not go into the next collection, etc., etc. He did not expand into women's and children's just because he was selling this. He stuck to this until he reached, his 80% perfection, right? So follow, success leaves clues. Look at these people, reverse engineer their success, learn how they did it and do that. Focus on tangible and measurable results. I thought I was focused when I was building my last business until I realized at one point, and actually that point came when I went to a trade fair in Hong Kong, and it was organized by Enterprise Nation, a UK organization, and it was sponsored by Alibaba. And since I was building a manufacturing platform, obviously Alibaba was my idol, and Jack Ma, etc. So we were at their offices, and when I saw how much they had achieved in such a short period of time, how much money they were making, how deep and wide their offers, and how little I knew about what they were doing and how much they were doing, I realized that the focus that I thought I had wasn't focused, because I was having way too many coffees with people. Anyone who wanted to pick my brain, or I wanted to pick their brain, we were going for coffees and things like this that were wasting my time and not resulting in the results that I wanted to achieve. So that is not focus. So find tangible, measurable results and focus and measure by this. So not by coffees, because coffees don't end up in revenue, as I found out, but measure things that move the so-called needle of your business. And then lastly, get support. So many creatives spend so much money on fabrics, expensive fabrics, that end up after that leading to, expensive samples, to expensive products that they cannot sell for that price. They spend money on photographers and photo shoots and building some zhuzhed up, website and whatever. These are important investments to do, but to a degree and at the right time. And often because they get swayed by persuasive marketeers and salespeople, etc., they invest money with the wrong people at the wrong time of their business, not knowing enough about something when it's a little bit, too early or too late or whatever, and they don't get the results. And what would help you the most, perhaps at many points of your journey, is finding the right mentors. When you're early in your phase of development as a brand, you need mentors perhaps that are more tactical, and they can teach you things, how to, do your website alone, update it, right? How to set up a funnel, how to, put a newsletter and write it yourself, how to blah, 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 how to, pattern cut, or how to find a factory, how to sample, etc., right? It's more like what? It's skills based. But as you progress and you launch your business and you're looking to grow and scale it, you need people, mentors, coaches, etc., that are going to be the who. Who do they know? They are going to be about holding you accountable. They're going to provide you with support, especially when you work with them for the longer term, because the more they get to know you, the more they can help you. They are going to, provide you with the right environment, with the right energy, with the right support, mindset more than tactical, for you to be able to excel and move forward, okay? Because you can always hire the people for the skills, but it's very difficult to find, to self-motivate continuously, especially when your production is late, when you don't have finances or something happened or you're not selling, etc. So that's when you need that mental support. And a lot of creatives don't see that value. They think it's valuable, but they don't spend money. Do you have something for free? How much is your session? Oh, it's a lot, etc. And I'm not saying this to cast blame or shame or anything like this. And I'm not saying this because I want you to message me, not at all. But I just want you to be open to the fact that you need help by people. And good people cost money, because like in my case, I've got 25 years of experience, so varied and wide that there's like hardly anyone with my varied and extensive experience. I can help you with everything and anything. And that comes at a price, because I've done the reps. I've stayed in this industry. I've worked with lots of people. I've been coached myself. I've paid money to up-level and improve myself. So you need to find the right people, and you need to do the same. You have to emulate the idols and the people that you respect, because that's what they do. One of the most, just by an example, the biggest investors, venture capitalists in the world, I read once about him that he pays Tony Robbins, who is a huge coach in America or worldwide. He apparently pays him $1 million every single year for him to be his coach, not because he needs any training, but Tony Robbins apparently every single week sends him a message, and this guy has to account on him with his weight. I think he needs to score his week on 0 to 10. I mean, there's like some KPIs that they have put together. And this guy, the big venture capitalist, has to account to Tony Robbins on all of these metrics. And if they move, Tony Robbins is on the phone to him and he wants to know, why have they moved? Are you depressed? Did something happen? Are you eating correctly? Did you party too much? Did you celebrate something? Because whatever has happened to move these variables is either bad or it's good, and he needs to get to his optimum level. And this guy pays him for that 1 million. But it's worth it to him because it keeps him on that path to success, right? It aligns with his identity. And someone like him who gets this kind of results gets this kind of level of mentoring from, top of the class, etc. So find people that you respect, that you can support you, and find ways to work with them. There's more than one ways, always with someone. Find peers that support you. There's masterminds, there's paid ones, there's free ones, there's good Facebook groups or whatever. Create your own. I have created my own. I every 2 weeks meet with a bunch of, it's 9 of us, of entrepreneurs from all kinds of different industry. I'm the only fashion. And we meet for 1 hour and we hold each other accountable. Okay, so create your own. If you can't find one that suits you, get therapy. I grew up believing that we, growing up in communist countries are really strong. We don't need help. We don't need shrinks. This is for the weak capitalist countries, especially America. That's how I was. This is the software download I was given. And it's only in the last few years that when I couldn't problem solve something by myself and it wasn't working, everything that I was doing and trying, seek help very briefly, very quickly from someone, scared, because that's the belief that I was given, that I shouldn't. And when they fixed my problem, it's kind of opened the floodgates. I'm now really open, and I have learned a lot about the fact that even when you have an idyllic childhood and nothing bad happened, like let's say in my case, you still get trauma. You still have something that you need to work out that when you decide to become an entrepreneur is standing in your way. So find the people to support you. They can be peers, they can be mentors, they can be therapists, whatever works. It's a question of who, not what, that you need at a certain point. And as long as you make choices and, collect data and ask the right questions and you make a decision, even if you make a mistake, it's not a mistake. It gives you data. You learn how to ask better questions next time, that this therapy doesn't work, that you need a different coach, etc. And remember that at no time, one person will plug all your holes. It takes a village to raise a child and to raise a brand. It takes a village at any one point. So finally, I'm coming to the end, is what would I also do differently? And I suggest you also learn how to do differently, is create boundaries for yourself. Most of us have problems in our businesses and lives because we don't have boundaries, because we whenever someone wants something, tells us something to do, etc., we feel that it's expected of us. We give it that meaning that we have to jump and do it. We have no boundaries. So set yourself boundaries, because when you set yourself boundaries, you will create space. And when you create space in your life and your business, you will be able to take breaks. And taking breaks is super important. When I plan my schedule and what I'm getting to a state to encourage the clients I work with is to, build breaks into their calendar from the start, because it's really important. You need to recharge, refuel your batteries. And particularly, there are certain human design types that need breaks in order to, function properly. When you have boundaries and when you get breaks, you will create balance in your business and your life. Now, I don't believe that balance exists as such, like 50-50. Sometimes it's like this, but you decide what is balance. For example, working too much doesn't mean that I don't have balance, because I love what I do. I can wake up and straight away pick up my computer. It's okay for me. For others, this is probably a nightmare scenario, so balance looks different from everyone. So you decide what balance is for you and work towards that, but create boundaries and, build into your schedule breaks. And in terms of fashion, be cleverer with how you design. I mean, there's a lot of materials that I've put out and I'll continue to put out about, being a better designer, especially if you want to be sustainable and ethical. So be a better designer. Don't put out stuff that you don't believe is going to survive beyond, many years. With your manufacturing, be kind, be ethical. Don't, if you have the identity of someone successful, don't penny pinch for things, Look at yourself and your design. The manufacturers are not out there to skin you. They make such a small margin, and don't always blame them. Not to say that they don't make mistakes, etc. But what I'm saying is that manufacturing is becoming a real scarcity profession, and it's going to get worse and worse. So you really need to become a better designer and a better marketeer and have the right mindset in order to manufacture going forward. And that I think this is a big topic I'm going to, spend some time debunking and, focusing on in the future. But this is going to become, already is a real pain point in the industry. So you really need to become a better marketeer and a better salesperson who has boundaries, who takes breaks and refills and manages their energy, etc., so that you can have a successful business. And it all, again, comes from the identity. And when you make the choice to operate from that place, and you also have a long-term plan and not short-term plan, what you'll notice will happen then is that when people come and tell you, oh, your product is too expensive, do you have it cheaper? When's your sale? Will you do me a discount, etc.? Friends, mates, and, mates rates and all of that. You're not going to be bothered because you will have the conviction that you're in there for the long term. You have made a decision to build that business, and you would know, what you need to do to get the results. And the fact that, your market is really big and you don't have to cave into one person who right now doesn't have the money to pay for your product, etc. So this is what I would advise you to do differently, knowing what we've just spoken about and talked about now. And this is the last slide, almost. These are 3 books. Okay, you can see that the 4th one is my shameless plug, but there's a reason. But these are 3 books that I think they're super easy to read, and especially the first 2 are super small as well, that I would say that they are required reading for everyone who has, found this interesting and who really wants to see results. Particularly the first, particularly the second, particularly the third. And they're all very different. But when you read through the first and the second, and especially when you start growing your business, knowing of the third book, The Big Leap, and having it by your bedside and dipping in and reading is going to be a game changer for you, because this places a focus on the invisible ceilings that appear to everyone, and we don't know how to overcome them. And then we wonder, why is my business not growing? Because you've put a mental block on yourself for some whatever reason. Your subconscious has put a block because maybe in your head you think that if you have too much money, you grew up with the belief that rich people are mean and horrible, and in your subconscious is keeping you small and not allowing you to make too much money because you don't want to be mean and horrible. Very often success is curtailed and stopped short. People stop short of success because of invisible blocks that they have that they don't know that they're having, that they need to overcome to get to the next level. And there's this saying that at every level there's a new devil. This book is about this, so I really highly recommend it. And my one is there as number 4 because I genuinely think, and I hope that someone soon will write a better one, but I genuinely think that there isn't a book like this on the market that tells you the truth, and it puts everything into a big picture and context rather than have one paragraph on manufacturing. How can you with 1 page or 1 paragraph explain what goes on in manufacturing? How can you with 1 page on 1 little chapter of 2 pages explain, how to sample or the mindset or this, that, the other? So if you haven't read it, you should, but that's it. Yeah. So I think that these 4 books are like a must for you to get and read and, highlight and just keep using and using and using, because they will serve you at every level. You're going to find something that was this in this book? Really? Okay. This is now helping me, and I see what I need to do to get to the next level. And that's it. I've told you what next is that this Friday is the Sold Out Secrets Masterclass, where I'm going to take this masterclass onto the next level and show you when you have the right identity and you have decided and committed to growing your business, how to release the pressure valve and how to bring more money into your business through sales of your own products, but through other avenues as well, so that you are making money and you relax your nervous system and you're not in anxiety and panic that you have no money to live from and you have to borrow again and da, 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 da. So this masterclass is all about that. So get your ticket now. And otherwise, these are all the ways that you can contact me and work with me should you want to. There's one-on-one that I do, not very many, but there's always something that will become available, if not available immediately. Obviously, there's the power hours, which I think are super powerful, and I don't think that enough people are taking advantage of them, but that's just my opinion. You can also book a VIP day, ask me, message me if you're interested in that and what can be achieved. And as I'm changing my business model, as I told you, that's what I've been working on. There will be a lot more of these short training, masterclasses, things that are more immediate because they work with how I work. They give me joy, and I feel lit up and enthusiastic and energetic. And I think that they would also deliver more value to my community and all of you. And of course, for free, there's the podcast, there's the YouTube and the social media. I'm currently a lot on Instagram, so follow me there, and also my newsletter. And that is it. That is it. It was a long one. And I hope that it made sense. So thank you to everyone who made it until now. If you have any questions, okay, Beth, I will. Just email me. Anyone who is interested in anything that I spoke, whether it's a contact, whether it's another book, whether it's something, whatever. Message me either by email or by Instagram or Facebook, whatever it is, and I'll get back to you and I'll share happily and openly everything. Because I just want you all to know what I know and to succeed. For now, this is it. Thank you so much. And I will see you on the next masterclass.